but they are working very, very happily and very satisfied over here, 1/3. And all of these, mind you, are knowledge workers here. And that's a great place to be. A knowledge worker always has got the capability of transformation. It has got the capability of transformation and potential to do many, many more things and help the state with there. And most of these people, they work for the country, for India as a whole, but they also have got the capability of doing a lot of things outside for the external world as well. Let me move on to the topic which really is close to my heart, extremely passionate for me, the transformation potential of technology for touching lives on an absolutely daily basis. We've been doing this over here. We've engaged with Tamil Nadu not only on having so many people over here, but engaged with them in many projects. We've done projects of commercial taxes, education, a whole lot of projects which clearly made a difference to the lives of people over here. But technology, like I said, has got a huge transformation potential, and I'm going to talk to you about a few of these here. And a few of these which are solutions for the real world. And the reason I call solutions for the real world is because a technology which is global in scale has to find extreme relevance for being implemented in a diverse country like India. And India is unique. India is unique in its scale, India is unique in its population nature, India is unique in its demographics, in its digital divide, haves and have-nots, all of that. So unless you have solutions which are relevant for the country, you will not find favor with the people to be implemented here. And I'm going to talk to you about 2 or 3 of them, and then we can explore into many, many others, but 2 or 3 of them. And people mentioned about this, Chandra mentioned about this on education and healthcare. But let me give you a sense of healthcare solution. What HP is doing in healthcare for making the solutions relevant. And the biggest challenge in healthcare is if you go beyond the top cities in the country, you struggle to find quality healthcare at a cost-effective price. Sometimes, even if you pay the price, you don't get quality healthcare. And what HP is doing is, HP is creating a healthcare solution which has got all the devices, all the medical equipment you can think of from a diagnosis perspective, housed into a very, very nicely packed container. And this container then has got interconnection of devices. It can get the diagnostics of a patient done very well, and then hooks up with a remotely administering healthcare advice or solution or consultancy for people to get quality healthcare. Now, we've already done 41 such centers across the country. One, Mr. Minister and Mr. Secretary, exists in the state of Tamil Nadu as well, in Krishnagiri district, and they have potential of doing many, many more such things. But it has a huge impact. And what we've done is, by doing this, the cost of healthcare has come down by 1/12 per interaction. So you get quality healthcare, and HP has started with Narayan Hirulale of Karnataka, Devi Shetty's hospital, to administer remote consultancy and remote advice on this. You've reduced the cost by 1/12. You've made it extremely affordable. You've made it extremely quality conscious for the people to get the best of healthcare. And it's a very simple concept. It works with the devices in a container. It hooks on through a network of HP Cloud into a hospital. The doctors on the other side can be time bound, and they can really be administering medicine and doing all of that. So that's a one great solution that we're talking about. The second thing that I want to really talk about is, because it's such a close thing to the hearts of our Prime Minister and everybody in the state as well, 98 smart cities to be done, 11 to be done in the state of Tamil Nadu. And these smart cities, very interesting statistics. 17% of the world youth population will be in India by 2020. And this is an aspirational population. They want to do better in life all the time. They want to scale up new challenges, great potential they carry, and they really want to make a difference to their lives. But as a country, India continues to lose almost $10 billion annually on traffic jams. We lose $70 billion because of non-availability of electricity to production capacity. $70 billion, mind you, is 490,000 crore rupees. $10 billion is 70,000 crore rupees on roadblocks and traffic alone. Yeah. So there's a way in which, and 40% of the water gets wasted while in transmission losses. So these are huge things that you can overcome by doing smart cities as a concept. And what you're doing is, you're creating a network of solutions and products and services that then get digitally connected, whether it is a community service center, whether it is doing service to the citizen, a government to citizen interface, or it is a creation of traffic management, energy management, education, whatever solutions you can think of under the banner of those smart cities, then get done to the student, to the people, and just the quality of life sees a very significant and a fundamental shift through just the smart city initiative. We are very passionate about this. India is embarking on this. extremely committed to making this a reality for the people of India. And the third one, and HP has got a huge amount of expertise in doing this across the world that we've done here. The third thing is about empowerment with education. We've been engaged with education in the state of Tamil Nadu through the LCOT projects very deeply. We have done a huge amount of deployment, almost 1 million devices across the state, but that's not really that I'm going to be talking about. Again, education in India, when you go to remote places, when you go to small tier 2, 3, 4, 5 cities, you will find that quality, cost availability, all of that is always a challenge, very often it's a challenge. Now, Tamil Nadu is a much better state in those aspects, but go to many other states across the country, you will find that that's a huge challenge. And then HP's vision of education, which is access of content, access of curriculum, true learning solutions, really then get into an outcome which can be so much unique, so much more economically uplifting, and so much more socially uplifting. And this solution, again, is a solution which works on creating a cloud, which we've done, on having a container which has a whole lot of learning devices, and the curriculum is fed on the learning devices via VSAT, so people can really log into these devices, and these are classrooms which are already existing and available, and people can have a very interactive, integrated learning sort of a concept. And the point which Chandra mentioned about creating so many universities in the state, the requirement of so many universities in Tamil Nadu as well as across the country, then you can see these solutions can really quickly can be scaled out for doing so many learning outcomes that we, as a country, we need to move forward to. So it's a unique blend. And to Mr. Jain's point about having a combination of devices, you will need devices. You will need a variety of devices because each individual is learning, or each patient is being served by a doctor. There has got to be a device. So India has got the potential now of creating almost a 125 crore devices for each citizen of the country, unique devices for different things, and then being able to make a difference to the lives of these people and uplifting the quality of each one of these individuals. And look, I just wanted to take these 3 examples, but there are many examples. And I've had the fortune, great fortune of being associated with many projects in this country. All of these projects that I'm mentioning right now, you'll find they're unique in scale. UID project, which has done already 80 crore people across the country which have been unlisted on the UID project. That's a great project. It touches life. It has a potential of making a difference. You can do direct funds transfer to these people now in the bank accounts of the Jan Dhan Yojana. You take a look at railways. The project which touches the life of maximum number of people on a daily basis is railways. All of them have been done and computerized through technology and making a difference to the lives of all of these people as we are making a difference to these people through technology and solutions. And that really is what it is. Creating solutions through a combination of products and services at scale, and these are solutions for a real-world country like India. And we are extremely fortunate to be present in a country where so much is happening at this moment, where we've got all the capability of doing these things, and doing things in a very different way. The world learned them. When the world was implementing these solutions, they learned them, they made mistakes, they had a whole bunch of course corrections to be done. But we are fortunate. We are fortunate because we got the potential now of leapfrogging and not making the mistakes that the world did. We can leapfrog, we can implement all these solutions, we can implement all these goodness for the citizens of the country at scale, solutions for the real world. And I think having done this in this country for such a long time, we feel extremely privileged to be in a position to partner with the government, but partner with the government of Tamil Nadu clearly to make a huge difference and continue our journey forward. And that really, in my opinion, will be the big impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Again, a very well presented argument. And of course, I'd like to say a lot about this, but then we'll eat into the other speakers' time. Then maybe we can take it up during the discussion following the presentations. I'll now request Mr. Venkat Ramaraja, from Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Ramco Systems Limited, to make his presentation. Again, Ramco Systems is an old Chennai player. So,
this one. Okay. So, good afternoon, Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here to present to you about R&D and innovation from Tamil Nadu and my company. And as per NASSCOM's data, 13% of the domestic IT market in India will be R&D driven and IP, but I think that that figure has to grow quite dramatically. And as an entrepreneur and a proponent of IT-led investments, I'm happy to share with you some insights of how innovation and technology are driving disruption in today's business. Everybody is getting disrupted. You will agree that innovation and disruption are omnipresent and always have been. The car was invented and the saddle and the horse carriage went out of business. What is different today is how the sheer pace in which technology is moving. For example, Kodak, Sony, Motorola, Sun, AOL all had outstanding products and became bywords in the industry, but today they are a shadow of their former selves. Telecom companies are losing close to 6 to 8% of their revenues each year to free calls and messaging from maybe they're losing about 6 to 8% of their revenues, which is close to $3.2 billion every year because of free calls from Skype and WhatsApp and so on. So what is driving all this is basically because of the change in technology that is happening. And I would like to tell you I'm just going rapidly towards the main slide. So basically what we at Ramco have been looking at, we've been in the product business for many years, and we have been actually the largest provider of ERP solutions out of India. And initially our basic focus has been, from the ERP and enterprise technology point of view, has been on the system of records, where we capture data, reporting and querying and so on. But as the various speakers were talking, the systems moved towards analytics and analysis and data and so on and so forth. And big data became a big byword even 3 to 4 years ago. But now the systems have moving because of Internet of Things and so on towards cognitive solutions. And what is the architecture difference we are innovating to make sure that R&D is changing towards making sure that the enterprise systems become intelligent. The basic innovation which is coming out of our research center in Tamil Nadu is the introduction of intelligence into enterprise solutions. So what that means is we have a unique framework in which we bring in the world of agents, which are intelligent agents into the architecture of our analytics, which will actually drive intelligence into the systems. For example, I would like to give you a small example of agent-based optimization, where we bring in collaboration and cognitive computing into the product. And here, this is a little example which we have from Singapore Post, where we have this is just moving. How does this work? I mean, this is so where we have a system where there is a courier service, where there is an SMS going to a central dispatch situation. Imagine I am wanting a parcel to be sent to a central to another location in Singapore, and there is a request, an SMS going towards a central location. Imagine the system intelligently knowing where the courier is, and if he's already in the building, how do you automatically make him go and pick up a parcel and have the customer satisfied within an hour or so. So these intelligent systems are getting built into the system, into the ERP market. And that is one. And then we also find that we also find that the interaction with ERP is now moving towards moving towards a collaboration without getting into the product. For example, you can actually interact with enterprise systems with just emails and so on, so that you don't have to worry about user interface. So we are going into a world of zero UI. And so for this, we have invested a lot in innovation and core R&D. And from building the first ERP system in APAC way back in the 1990s to launching applications in mobiles, tablets, and wearables, and bringing cognitive and predictive analytics into the world of enterprise solutions. Technology is the way of life in Ramco, and I'm happy to share that all the innovation and future technologies you saw are being developed right here in Chennai, Tamil Nadu. We are glad that we are building the next generation of products, and we have invested more than 20 plus years of R&D effort and IP in Tamil Nadu. I congratulate the Tamil Nadu government for being able to give us this environment of creating an R&D center in Tamil Nadu, and it's a great source of getting intellectual talent for our R&D effort. Thank you very much.
So again, Mr. Raja did not need a cue. The software industry is so geared up to delivering on time or ahead of time that it runs in their genes, I think. So thank you so much for an excellent presentation. We will now have Mr. Gill make his presentation.
Good morning, Honorable Minister,
Mr.
distinguished
Gill, let me
panelists.
just introduce yourself. He's General Manager Public Sector from Microsoft Corporation.
Can we get to the presentation? Okay, there we go. First of all, good morning, Honorable Minister, distinguished panelists, esteemed guests. And first of all, let me say that I'm highly, highly humbled to be actually speaking up here with such a distinguished panel. So thank you for the great opportunity. It's a phenomenal vision that the Tamil Nadu government has in terms of driving investments into the state. It's been a very, very progressive state for a very, very long time, and I think that's the new government is just looking to add the cherry on top of the cake. What I needed to talk about here is a little bit about, from our perspective, what is different insofar as Microsoft is concerned, and what is different in the mega trends of technology, which together we can look at in terms of driving a very digital, very modern government. Governments are facing today very, very complex challenges. Government face challenges perhaps at a speed which they've never faced before. There's very, very rapid urbanization that governments have got to look at. People are moving into cities at a very large pace. Cities in India today account for roughly about 63% of India's GDP. Worldwide, cities account for about 80% of the GDP. And cities typically worldwide occupy about 2% of the land mass. So imagine the challenge before a city administrator or the government in trying to figure out how to make the city more habitable, more livable, more economically relevant, and a temple of learning at the same time. There are issues before governments in terms of driving the economy. The economy goes up and down for reasons for which perhaps the government may have no control. There are large macro factors from global economy, given which there are vagaries of economy that the government's got to deal with. The government's got to deal with aging infrastructure at all points in time. The infrastructure over a period of time has not been overhauled as rapidly as it could have been. Security threats continue to advance at a very, very rapid pace, and we don't even know where the security threats are coming from. So the government's got enormous challenges. And are there ways in which we can help mitigate all of that? Now, there are huge mega trends in technology, which all of you are probably familiar with. There's mobility, there's social, there's cloud, there's big data and analytics. A lot of people have spoken about that. Rajiv spoke about the cloud. A lot of speakers before me spoke about analytics and so on and so forth. I'm going to focus on one of these trends, and which is essentially the cloud, which is what we are focused on at this point in time. And in essence, before I move forward over there, the cloud, in a sense, is democratization of technology. Now, Rajiv spoke about the fact that big data centers had to be built at some point in time to be able to deliver whatever services you had to deliver. The government's been building large data centers for a very long time. You've got state data centers, you've got NIC delivering services, so on and so forth. It's a huge investment of money. It's a huge investment of money which also goes obsolete in a very short period of time. Technology changes today at a pace at which it outstrips any change that has happened in the recent past. So from that particular perspective, cloud is a democratization of technology. This permits small and medium enterprises today to be able to compete at a global level with large behemoths, large giants of industry. So any small and medium enterprise today leveraging the cloud, leveraging technology, can actually have a very easily a global presence. It doesn't matter where they're based out of. So from that particular perspective, it's a great democratization of technology. For a government, what does it mean? For a government, the cloud brings unprecedented scale. When we are talking about cloud, we are talking about hyperscale cloud. There are very few companies in the world which actually offer hyperscale cloud offerings. There are about 3 companies which actually do that today. One is Microsoft, the other one is Amazon, and the third one is Google. At the scale and size at which these companies offer this technology, and this technology is coming to India. This is something that our CEO spoke about a while back when he was here in India in September of last year. And this is something that we are bringing to India. Very shortly, in the next few weeks, we should be announcing the launch of our cloud services, and of course where the cloud services will be offered from. And I can't say really more than that at this point in time, but you can kind of take an intelligent guess where some of these locations would be. Now, purely from a cloud perspective, therefore, when the government looks at, one is just the scale at which almost infinite computing is now available to the government at their fingertips. It is the speed, it is the agility at which you can roll out services. You no longer have to build infrastructure. So do you have to build data centers in each city? So if you're talking about 11 smart cities, do we replicate infrastructure in 11 smart cities, or do we look at something like a cloud offering to be able to scale it out at very high speed? Do we look at reduction in costs? This has always been an issue. It's an issue for private sector companies. It's more of an issue for the government. And how do you take the budget that you have and make it stretch and make it go far? How do you really do that? Do you really spend on CapEx, invest money now on technology which will become obsolete, or leverage something like the cloud in which there is no technology obsolescence because technology continues to change? Build your application on top of it, rapidly scale it out. So these are some of the things which the cloud brings in terms of democratization of technology, and a very, very rapid ability to roll out services, citizen services at an extremely fast pace and change if you want. Now, purely from a perspective of what is Microsoft's vision, right? I've talked about the cloud, and a lot of people talked about how computing is changing. There are 3 pillars to our vision. One is create more personal computing, and what does that really mean? Computing for a long time, and Microsoft has been associated with computing, personal computing for ages. That's how we started. It was to actually have a desktop, to have a computer on every desktop. And that vision, to some extent, at a global scale, got realized a while back. Computing is changing. Computing is no longer about the desktop, the laptop, about the tablet. It's none of these things. There's a compute fabric which possibly surrounds all of us today. People have spoken about the Internet of Things. There are intelligent sensors everywhere. There are large screens which can compute. There are small screens which can compute. Your telephones today are your computing devices. Tablets are computing devices. Traffic signals are run intelligently. Data could be gathered from your home. Data could be gathered from various other places. CCTVs surround you as you move into a city. And there are all kinds of sensors everywhere. So there's a compute fabric which surrounds you. How do you make it more personal? How do you change the way that you interact with the compute fabric? For a very long time, how did one interact with the compute fabric? One typed. Then came touch. So the compute fabric is changing. The way that you interact with that compute fabric also has to change. It has to become much more natural. You should be able to speak and get an answer. You should be able to use a gesture and something should be able to respond. So natural interfaces to this compute fabric are what we are looking at bringing about. So the compute fabric will surround all of us, and how do we interact with that will change. So as you see Windows 10 landing, for instance, you're able to speak through Cortana, for instance. There's a lot of intelligence built into it. All of that is changing. Gestures through Xbox and so on and so forth. That's not only for play. It can be used, for instance, in hospitals, medical diagnostics, rehabilitation, so on and so forth. So therefore, all of that is a huge amount of change. That is one of our visions. How do you make computing more personal, surround you? Reinvent productivity. I mean, that's been, kind of our forte for a very, very long time. I'm glad to see how much PowerPoint has been used here today. Essentially that's productivity. Productivity is also about collaboration. Productivity is also about communication. So all of this is something that, Microsoft has inherently been very good at. For a very long time, we actually guarded it and kept it something which was available only on a Windows platform at one point. That's no longer the case.
For all you know, it might all be open source.
Might be open source. And we embrace open source too, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And today, one of the things that's happening is all of these productivity platforms are being made available now on any platform, essentially. So you would find today Office sitting on an Android device. You would find Office sitting on an iOS device. In fact, at the Apple conference the other day, one of the speakers was from Microsoft, for the first time in history, and a very surprising thing to happen. On open source, one of the things that's happening today is that when we look at something like Azure, our cloud offering, 20% of the workloads which sit on that are actually open source. Right? So open source is something that we now contribute to, we embrace, and we provide services, whether it's based on open source or whether it's based on anything else. And when we come to the third thing that I was speaking about, which is essentially the intelligent cloud, build an intelligent cloud which is then capable of powering and bringing that compute fabric that surrounds you, making it more intelligent, making productivity something which is very, very relevant to you today. For the government to be more productive, be more effective, be more efficient, which is one of the goals of any government today. Mr. Modi speaks about it, it's being spoken about by the Tamil Nadu state government. Now, do you really then go invest in a lot of things? Do you build an email platform? Do you build a collaboration platform? Or does that service get delivered off the cloud? So all of that is something that, essentially are the three pillars of what Microsoft's vision is. Therefore, to create more personal computing, reinvent productivity, and build the intelligent cloud. Now, Satya, as I said earlier, and an Indian CEO for a global multinational, as Arun spoke about a little bit earlier, and we're very proud of that fact. And when he came here, back in September, he talked about the fact that he wanted to bring the cloud to India. India is a rapidly transforming country. India's got a population which is roughly about 1.3, 1.4 billion. We will actually have 300 million people or more by the time we are in 2030s, which is actually larger than the population in the United States who are aging. So how do you provide healthcare services for them? The government's going to grapple with that challenge in terms of looking at, for that rapidly aging population, how do we get statistics in, how do we get data in, rural, urban population, what are the healthcare afflictions, how do we actually manage all of that? But we are also one of the most, we are also one of the youngest nations at the same time, so huge dichotomy. How do we skill our workforce for the 21st century? Again, an issue which the government will grapple with. And then do we look at the cloud? Do we look at, some of the devices which people like Rajiv spoke about? How do we look at combining all of that and creating digital learning platforms that the government can then utilize and make sure that the students are getting ready for employability in the 21st century? We are entering into an MOU, or we've entered into an MOU, at least on the education side, in which we will work with the Tamil Nadu government in transforming digital learning within the schools. And essentially, the cloud is something which is something that we believe is true, is there for every citizen. And long back, the cloud actually started in many ways, right? You use email, some of you use Hotmail, Google, Yahoo, whatever it is that you use. All of it essentially is the cloud. You store your data on the cloud, you store pictures on the cloud. So as citizens, as individuals, you've started using the cloud long back. The barriers of entry fall when the public starts adopting something, and slowly that moves into the enterprise, slowly that moves into the government. But the cloud is something which we believe, private, hybrid, public, whatever shape and form it will exist in, it is something that governments will leverage in order to be able to deliver better citizen services quicker, faster, and more efficiently to the citizens. And this is a cloud, which has to be by its very nature, be platform agnostic. So whether it is open source, whether it is Microsoft, whether it's anything else, it has to be language agnostic, it has to be database agnostic. All of any application that you really want to put on, you should be able to put on. The government can look at a lot of applications which exist today, or things that they're developing and how do we put that on. The government can look at figuring out how do you scale MSME and give them a right platform to be able to compete in the world. And this is one of the areas that we would love to work with the Tamil Nadu government on, that how do you end up providing services to the MSME community so that they can utilize the cloud, get that democratization of technology, and be able to take their ventures to a much larger scale. And this is, I just wanted to leave you with these statistics. I won't go through all of it, but this is government adoption. Essentially, governments are rapidly adopting the cloud. So as and where cloud has landed within the countries, we understand issues around data sovereignty, data security, so on and so forth. But where cloud has landed, governments are big adopters. And we expect Tamil Nadu, being such a visionary government, to be able to lead the way in embracing the cloud and figuring out how do you leave some of the other states behind. And in effect, ultimately the public value is the measure of success. All of these drivers and demands, challenges that we spoke about, eventual outcome that a citizen looks for is economic growth, is actually social inclusion, is environmental sustainability and good governance. And all of these, I think, are capable of being powered at a very